Hey guys, how are you today? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining me on this Monday afternoon. I am going live. However, I say we because your questions, your comments are completely welcomed at any time. I am just ensuring that I am well connected to audio. There we go. And thank you for joining me. Grab your coffee, see my cup, be yourself. The world will adjust. I thought it was fitting for today as we dive into today's topic. So, a couple things, a little bit of housekeeping. Couple things. I'm going to be speaking from the heart today. This is going to be episode 183, which is like cool. I don't even know what to say to that. It's surreal sometimes when you think about what you can accomplish when you get started. So I am recording this live on YouTube. Whether or not anybody joins me, I'm okay with that. One way or another, this recording is still going to be used as my delivery for this particular episode. So if it can serve a dual purpose last minute, that's fantastic. The photos reverse what I'm used to. The room's a little bit darker than what I like. So I'm going to brighten things up with a hint of color. And for those that know me well, you know that would be a little bit of lip color. So episode 183, what does that mean to you when you hear that? Like, what does that say to you? The first thing that jumps out to me is consistency. The first thing that I think about is accomplishments. And I know on a day where I'm feeling what I'm feeling today, on a day like today, I don't have it in me to do anything on my checklist. I don't have it in me to do much. I actually had a shower mid-morning on a Monday, holiday Monday, and hoping I would have full energy, and I didn't have it today. So we're talking about a really cool topic that came to me as I was getting ready. And now we're sitting in the office, and I've got a nice pumpkin candle, clove scented candle burning. I just love the smell that it brings to the table, the smell of fall and changes. And to my right, I'm going to show you quickly, I am finishing off a painting for one of my friends. She asked for it, so I created that one for her. It's not 100% done, but you can see I've been working on it, and I will be finishing that up today. And my daughter wanted a different one of my paintings. So I'm showing you the creativity that's sitting around me. And for those that are catching this on my podcast channels, you know, to the right of me, I literally have paintbrushes and colors, a bit of a subtle color palette, which isn't my norm. It makes me feel a certain way when I am painting those colors. So why am I talking about painting, and why did I talk about being tired, and where is this leading us? And these are things I want to do. These are things, I have made decisions based on things I want to do, how I perceive my life to look. And one of those decisions is to host Thanksgiving dinner. And we've been hosting for some time now. Tony and I are very much in sync. Hosting Thanksgiving dinner is becoming easier and easier. It's kind of like Christmas. You're getting it down to a nice rhythm. And as, we're getting the activities done, getting the turkey done, getting the vegetables ready, making sure that we have everything that we need for hosting. And people start to arrive and they sit and they help and you talk. And, on top of that, we have a family matter going on right now. And I am recovering from 2 weeks of some sort of viral infection. So I have not been my normal self. And 2 weeks prior to that, my nerves were really inflamed again. So it's been a rough kind of patch that we're going through. Now we have some good news coming to us. There'll be an end of a chapter in a couple of days, which I can't believe. And so that excitement is also part of what we're talking about today. You see, what this is all boiling to is these are the events that I chose to do. This is the role I chose to play over the last 48 hours, right? Being a mom, being a partner, hosting dinner, preparing for that, visiting my dad in the hospital. And what's fallen to the wayside is me, prioritizing me. I was prioritizing what needed to be done, but I also needed to prioritize me. See, so this is a full day after, and I am completely exhausted. I want to do the things I chatted about earlier, like painting, like even putting up the podcast, getting some of this ready. I decided on doing this because for me, this was a compromise. And normally I would jump into this, but I thought it would be a really, really good topic to talk about today and what it's like to be emotionally exhausted, what that physically feels like to your body and how often are you feeling this way? So because I'm on a healing journey, everything shifted in my life. And for those that have been following me for a while, you're well aware I've been open. For those that are brand new, just think of your life being a house, and there's a square house in front of you that you can lift. And you lift it up and you shake it and you shake it side by side and you shake it upside down and then you put it down. And now you're the person inside the house and you're not sure what you can do, what you can trust, how to do what the next step is. What is the next step? You've been there. And if you haven't been there, feel blessed and grateful. But for those that have been there, that's part of initiation. That's part of a growth. That's part of bringing things to that next level. And it's more than just with every new level comes a new devil. It's more than that. You are being tested on so many different levels for so many different reasons. And here, right now, this is one of the tests. You feel exhausted. You're tired. Maybe you did what I did and you had a shower. You put a very little bit of makeup on. My hair is still wet. And for those that can see me, I'm actually fiddling once again with my hair. But yes, it did dry just like this. So there's nothing wrong with it. It looks good. And I have white joggers on with a purple tee. And I am ready after this to send out my email newsletter and go lay on the couch and completely give myself permission to relax to the point that maybe I'll fall asleep. See, my nervous system has been tightened. My nervous system is dysregulated. My nervous system right now wants to do the very best that it can when it's doing something, such as hosting. You're being that calm, confident, collected person in that environment where you want to shine so bright. But you add that with everybody else's emotions and what they're going through and what they bring to the table. And the very next day, you collapse. You cannot pick yourself up from that house that's been shaken all over. Okay. It is a thing. It is a thing. Being emotionally exhausted is a thing. So let's talk about this a little bit more. I'm just going to fix this. And what I want to bring to your attention is, first of all, let me get into a better description of what being emotionally exhausted feels like. It's terrible. It's social exhaustion is also known as social fatigue, social burnout, introvert hangover. All of these words are interchangeable. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Feeling utterly exhausted after spending time with people. And while sometimes this is called an introvert hangover, it's not exclusively to introverts. So even if you're like me, you're naturally extroverted, you can still socialize to the point of feeling emotionally and mentally drained. As I talk about this, as I think about this, I've been recollecting my past. And I have felt this so many times in my life. So many times. Let's dive in a little bit deeper and see what causes social burnout. Making small talk, engaging with others, staying in an environment where you're always meeting somebody different. Active listening and paying attention are just a few things that happen during social interaction. And all of that requires cognitive processing, which consumes energy. It's very much like thinking. You are thinking. You are processing information constantly. You're wearing yourself out. You're literally using your valuable energy in reserves to talk about whether or not weather, like the weather, the temperature, not weather, like the temperature, whether or not you need a jacket or a rain jacket or it's cold, and you're talking the weather with a guy in the elevator. Mixing up those two words just to see who's paying attention. If you're doing small talk with the guy in the elevator, you are still using your valuable energy for that. And most people on average, and I found this to be such a fascinating statistic, most people on average feel tired after 2 or 3 hours of socialization regarding the fact that they're an introvert or the fact that they're an extrovert. Don't make a difference. Neither one of them make a difference. And that's huge. There is no one or the other. Both introverts and extroverts are impacted when it comes to a time limit and being with people. And lately I've noticed that, so when you can recognize your social fatigue, you can handle it. You can't handle something you don't know anything about. So think of it like your battery. At every party, every social event, every conversation in it uses up some of that battery. Eventually, it's depleted and you need to recharge it. So social burnout can lead to mood and difficulty handling everyday situations. Remember how I said the paintings there? It's to distract me from those everyday situations. And when you're distracted from those everyday situations, your mind's a little bit more on autopilot because you're exhausted. You want to be leaning into that. But let's dive into the most common symptoms of social exhaustion and what it looks like. Physically tired. That was me today. Irritable or moody. Not me. Anxious or depressed. Not me. Detached or withdrawn. Not me. Sluggish. Me. dizzy. Not me. Unable to focus. Me. I had a couple of these. Other triggers that may affect you are headaches, migraines, difficulty sleeping, brain fog. And you can already hear that on my delivery today. Muscle aches. It's kind of like, whew, the heaviness that comes with it. That's why having a shower helped. But I want to expand on something for just a second. If you have any kind of deficiency disorder, ADHD, for instance, you are, I am even more susceptible. Okay. What happens here is, typically ADHD is typically characterized by inattention, being impulsive, and hyperactivity. ADHDers are often thought of as having talkative, full of energy. The reality, though, is this is much different. So many people with ADHD actually struggle with anxiety and fatigue and burnout already. And adults with ADHD are more likely to feel stressed and overwhelmed than those without having significant higher fatigue levels. So what does this have anything to do with socializing? And, as children, we learn these skills by watching other people interact. Over time, we learn from our peers. The process of observational learning requires your attention and your memory. And, sometimes you've heard people say that they're working with some coaches to bring them back to a place and time to help them revisit their attention and their memory and their emotions to that event. But all in all, children with ADHD have more trouble with social development than their peers. When many of us had learned how to interact better in adulthood, those early social difficulties have lasting impacts. And they can make socializing a lot harder, a lot more laborious. So when we have to work harder to understand subtle clues or actively listen during conversations, and on top of that, many people with ADHD already struggle with emotional regulation. Their bandwidth is completely different. Their homeostasis is expanded, and that includes their sensory stimulation, which can contribute to social exhaustion. So you may or may not realize that you have ADHD. You may or may not realize that you are socially exhausted, but start paying attention to how you feel after a business networking event. I used to feel this. I would come home, crash, and after church, I come home, I'm on a high, I tell Tony everything, and I crash. I'm doing the same thing right now. Okay. So emotional dysregulation, or I said that wrong. Emotional dysregulation. People that are going through that may have difficulty understanding emotions. They will categorize everything as one emotion and then maybe beat themselves up because they're extreme. These emotions are overblown. And yes, they have every right to them, but they're big. And with that comes an emotional fixation, inability to focus on anything else while they're upset. Now, I used to be like this. Thank goodness I've outgrown this. Oh, my dad's calling me. I will call him back, but how cool is that? He's actually in the hospital right now, so I will call him back after this. He is our health scare. Grateful, so grateful for a 78-year-old dad and mom. And naturally, I am aware, that you're getting older. And I realize this isn't easy. Naturally, it's hard. I wish it was more effortless, believe me. So that's a sidebar. Let's come back to this for a minute. People with ADHD have a lower tolerance for stress or frustration. They have difficulty calming down. So on top of somebody being extremely emotional and they swing a lot more in the pendulum on the boat, people with ADHD are also more sensitive and overly react to peer rejection. So there's 4 ways. I'm going to leave you with this today. There's a lot of information that I want you to listen to and then take a step back and circle back to. I believe this is a very important topic, and we're going to come back to it in different ways, whether it's through the newsletter or whether, I don't know yet. I guess you're going to have to stay tuned. But I'm going to leave you with 4 ways to manage your social exhaustion. And I'm going to explain to you my journey and where I'm at with this. And, I also shared that I have some exciting news starting in just a couple days. So by the time this podcast goes live, it gets downloaded and uploaded, we're looking at 7 days past when I recorded it. So that exciting event would have already happened. And I can tell you, I'm already starting to feel the joy in my body for this to happen, which means I'm also fighting with those emotions right now. So 4 ways to manage your social exhaustion. Pay attention to what your mind and body needs. I needed to sit down this morning and simply just do nothing and drink my coffee. I am exhausted. I am on a healing journey. I am being stretched with my dad being suddenly sick and how that feels and the impact that's having. I am 2 weeks into the flu, and I have something I am super excited for coming up in 2 days. Plus, I just hosted Thanksgiving dinner for 8, 9. Heavy emotions, even with my grandson. There's a lot going on right now. So the next day, I am completely feeling what my body needs, and it needs not much. I'm surprised I'm doing this, but I'm feeling called to do this in the present. So interesting, isn't it? I was able to pay attention to what my body and my mind needs. So for the rest of the day, from the way I dressed to the way I let my hair fall to whether I decide to paint next to whether I decide to go and watch a show and put my head down on the couch and try to nap after I call my dad, to whatever my body needs. Setting boundaries. And boundaries is the second point, because it's okay to skip something that you've committed to if you're already feeling overwhelmed. It might be helpful for you to communicate with your friends and family while you're taking a rain check. Stick to something simple like the thought of doing anything right now makes you so anxious. You can share that. You can say something like, I'm sorry, but I'm not actually available for that. Those are your boundaries. There's nothing wrong with going to an event and only staying for an hour. But if you have to stay, take mini breaks. So there's a couple of options, different ways you can handle this. I'll promise you this, it is so much easier to handle this in company with somebody who's been there and is going through their own journeys a couple steps ahead of you. They're fresh. They're in the know-how. And they know what it feels like. And when they know what it feels like, they're able to clench on and not let go, because they're proof of making it through the other side. But that didn't come without the third point, which is practicing self-care. Self-care doesn't have to mean that you have to spend the day at the spa. It can be much more simple than that. Taking care of yourself physically by eating well, getting enough sleep, drinking more water. These are the best ways to manage burnout. Self-care is also emotional and subjective. Whether it's journaling, I thought about that earlier. I haven't journaled in 2 days. I'm on my 3rd day right now of not journaling. That will probably help me feel better. Find what makes you feel relaxed. I have a candle going in here. You can smell it. Think of cloves. Think of cinnamon. A little bit of apple pie, apple crisp, apple cider, burning flames. Think of the fire. Think of the warmth. Think of the light replicating, because that's what yellow does, and that's the color of the flame. Okay, I hope you stopped for a second and stepped into all of those ASMR practices that I just brought you through when I talked about practicing self-care, finding what helps you relax. Even listening to what I just said there probably helped some of you relax. And that is called ASMR. You can find those on YouTube or in the Calm app. You can schedule some time every day to practice your self-care ritual and focus on listening. Try hard not to think of what you'll say next in the conversation. Try to listen, pay attention, and plan what you're going to say next. Focus only on listening. That's all you want to do. If you can do this, you're going to stop. If you take it to that next step or that previous step and only listen instead of focusing on what people are going to say next, that is a different step. And I want you to not do that. And I shouldn't have said that. So focus on listening. That's it. Kind of wiggle your toes when you go to speak to somebody. Wiggle, 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 wiggle your toes right now. And when you do that, you immediately smile. So if you go to talk to somebody and you wiggle your toes and you kind of smile, you're changing your energy. And when you change your energy, you're going to change your interaction and you'll be able to stop and simply listen. All right, guys, I know I'm tripping over my words, so I know I am emotionally exhausted, but here's the thing. You're not alone. If you've ever felt this way after a networking event, after any kind of breakfast, lunch, dinner meeting in an environment like a restaurant, at a movie theater, after a bunch of people are over, I felt it more often than not, most recently. And this is part of owning all of your emotions. And when you can own all of your emotions, you then become emotionally sober. We'll expand on that a little bit more at a later date. And I want you to think about what that means to you, being emotionally sober, and how today's episode connects. Thanks, guys, for those that caught the live, for those that are catching the audible. I hope you had fun doing what you're doing while you were listening. And I'd be curious to see if you had to stop to take notes like I do when I listen to something. And thank you, all of you, for being a part of my community.